Hey, so I'm sitting here today with Mark from Everest Air. They're in Arizona, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on with Mark. And why don't you just introduce yourself and say what's going on, where you're at, where you're from, and stuff.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm Mark Brimley. Company is Everest Air. I've been in business 6 years now. Um, yeah, Mesa, Arizona. So we basically serve the East Valley of Phoenix. So Mesa is the largest town. Gilbert, Chandler, Santan Valley.
In the infamous Maricopa County.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The audited county.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's about it. I've been doing HVAC since I was 15, and so I think
So that was like
you
two
know,
weeks
you
ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah. No, so you learn some things the wrong way when you're young, and then start your own business, and then you try to figure out how to run it. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Right. So what when I start working with a client, usually what happens is someone comes to me with an impetus that says, this is the part that's I wish was better. And in some cases catastrophic. Now I don't know if yours is that way, but a lot of them are like, oh my God, I'm almost bankrupt. Or in some cases, in other cases, it's like, yeah, it's okay, but this part I think wish was better. So where were you with that? Like where were you at where you said, I need to find help? Not that you had to find me, but you had to find help.
Yeah, and you kind of, when we started messaging, you kind of say something like, "Hey, people with perfect businesses aren't usually contacting me." So I'm like, "Yeah, I know, yeah, that's
Right.
exactly where I'm at." Like, I wouldn't definitely not bankrupt or anything like that, but just kind of at like a stalemate point in my business where it could go on like that forever, but that's not what I'm wanting to do. I was wanting to get more structure,
Right.
grow, and frankly be more
So let's
profitable.
dig into that a little bit. What does that feel like to be in that place? Because I guess sometimes if you say it, someone else will go, "Hey, that's me. I'm there." What does it feel like?
Uh,
Not just what's the situation on the surface, but how does it show up in places like in the business, in your life, even at home, or how does it show up?
I mean, probably the most glaring. I think I started messaging you in December. I think it was like, each year. So started from one guy, just me. Obviously, I hired a helper pretty much day one because I had bought a customer base. Then I'd hired another guy, and then the next year another guy and another guy, and lost one and hired another one. And then after year, so pretty much last year was my year five. Like, well, I was about as profitable as year two, I think. And so I started kind of looking at things like that as like we've grown in revenue, we've grown in certain ways, but not necessarily more profitable, not necessarily like for me, I wasn't it hadn't improved necessarily my lifestyle. I was still working too much. And at the end of the year, literally in December, sitting there thinking, well, worked more than ever, hired more employees, have more trucks, and made the same amount as I did, I think, in year two or three. And here we're at the end of year five.
Right. So yeah. So I'm going to guess here that because this is what a story I hear. See if this is true. Hey, I got all these employees, a lot more customers, a lot more revenue. My stress level's up, but I don't have any more money.
Totally. Yeah. So yeah, more stress, more liabilities,
Right.
and not sitting on a pile of cash at the end of the year, which definitely not hitting like 15 or 20% revenue or profit at the end of the year. And that's been my goal for several years. So that's where I was kind of at the end of last year. It's like, all right,
Right.
we got a 2021, we got to change some things up. Although we had the highest revenue number for 2020 so far, but not necessarily profit wise.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, revenue's not profit. So, right.
Yeah, yeah. So bumped everything up, but profit percentage had not gone up.
Right.
So
Yeah. So it makes a difference. So then how did you find me in the first place? I know we started messaging, but then what happened? How'd that happen? How did we find each
so
other?
yeah, definitely on the Facebook group. So I'd watched a ton of your videos, then started, subscribe to your YouTube page. I think I just kind of maxed out watching those. I felt like I agreed with you on a lot of points. Like, as you know, those Facebook groups, you get opinions from everywhere. And a lot of them you can just say, like, that's not true, that's wrong. But when you would post a video, I'd be like, okay, like that's something I could definitely do. Like I could see that being helpful. So then whether I commented on one of your pages or just direct messaged you, I don't remember, but just went from there.
Yeah, I don't remember either. That's why I'm asking the question. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
I think I
I find
commented.
people, we find each other. When I find people, they find me, we find it, I don't know, all different kinds of ways. So,
Yeah, Yeah, and so like kind of I felt like a lot of my like beliefs or ideas lined up with yours on like how a business should look,
Right.
and kind of that's the direction I obviously wanted to go. So
Well, I got to tell you that I think from my experience, having everybody I've worked with that's been successful that I've worked with that got better when I, that I was able to help them, and they got more successful when I worked with them. The most important piece that I seem to find a common denominator is if you're going to work with a coach, it doesn't matter if that's me or anyone else, you got to drink somebody's Kool-Aid.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I mean, obviously, when someone's looking for coaching and they're saying, "Hey, whatever I've got going on is not working," well, hey, Bubba, you can't keep doing what you're doing because that's not working. So you have to change to something else. You're gonna have to find a coach that you say, "I like what that guy thinks and his belief system, and I'm gonna buy into it and just do what they tell you."
yeah, totally. Because I've watched other videos and I listen to a ton of podcasts, and sometimes you end one and I'm just like, that's that like I don't think I could pull that off, or like
Right.
that's not what I see for myself. So anyway, and
I
that's
mean, I
big
did
for
it too.
me.
I mean, I've been around this business 30 plus years now. And there were times, even 25 years ago, I was listening to some guys going, "Well, that sounds great, but I I can't do it that way, or I don't like the way that's done." And like, here's an example that is out there. The way sales was taught in this business directly comes, and a lot of the sales trainers still out there, and I won't name names because I'm not going to out anybody or whatever, but if you look, there's a lineage that goes right back to like 1950s Fuller Brush Company, vacuum cleaner salesman,
Yeah,
encyclopedia door to door, insurance companies, used car, all of the techniques that you can learn to do. And by the way, I learned how to do them, and I'm actually pretty good at it, but I don't like doing it, where you kind of like back people into a corner and box them in, they have to say yes now. And I don't like doing it that
yeah,
way. And it's just a belief system, and it's because now there's guys who believe in it and it works great for them when they do as far as their business goes. um, I just can't do it all day, because it's not who I am. And so when I started looking at other folks, like, well, you've seen like, the guys that, like, I had Mark von Muser in my program,
yeah,
and Mark was like the sales director for Tony Robbins. And so
yeah,
he's a buddy of mine. And so I like what Mark says. And what's really, when I met him about a few years ago, and I thought, gosh, Mark, you and I think exactly the same thing about how this works. You don't like talk people into it. What you do is you just have to understand human nature and let them pick the thing they were going to pick anyway and feel great about it. And it's a lot easier. And so, just that kind of, picking a company to follow for sales training is a good example. Picking a company for how to do pricing is an example, picking all those things. And so I find that there's ways to be successful. There's more than one way to skin this cat as far as belief. Now,
yeah, for
having
sure.
said that, when you start to do things like, we talk a lot about numbers and, pricing and, accounting and stuff like that. There's only one way to do arithmetic. I'm sorry, guys. There's no like special arithmetic in your area. Oh, that won't work in my area. The people won't pay that much. It's like, well, you don't have a special math about profit.
Yeah, for sure. And
I mean, like,
and
you
I
know, it,
tried all that stuff too, and
yeah.
that's when I knew I needed help. Was like, okay, well, the pricing that I decided upon once upon a time just not give me
Right.
the results that I wanted.
The what what was the questions that we were talking about on our initial phone call or one-on-one call? Do you remember what that was?
Oh,
One of the
man.
questions I asked everybody is a question about pricing.
I don't remember
Remember?
specifics,
The
but
question is something like, so I ask you what your price is and you tell me, and then I usually say, okay, so how'd you decide that was your number?
oh yeah, I probably couldn't. Somewhat of a dartboard method. Yeah, uh, kind of guess and check, see how it feels. I didn't have good methods, and that was kind of my problem. So,
Yeah.
what I can say is that obviously starting on your program and everything, we've raised prices quite a bit, service and installs, and that's been, that's probably been the number one thing that's changed this year to where we've seen for sure. I know now we're a third of the way through, but let's talk like first quarter, definitely the most profitable first quarter that I've had by far,
Okay.
like far and away.
Because that was actually going to be my next question. What's the first thing that we worked on that I told you to do that worked?
Well, pricing, right? It's kind of the
Right.
pricing workshop. So, well, knowing my numbers, like I crunched all my expenses, all my revenue for last year to figure out where we were, and then pricing for this year, and you know what it costs to get a tech in a home, acquiring customers, and where we need to be at to be profitable.
Did you find any surprises when you looked at those numbers?
Um, yeah. I mean, I would say found some jobs that maybe thought were profitable that turn out not to be that way.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think specifics, but just maybe certain installs or certain repairs that we're doing that could be much more profitable that weren't. Um, so yeah, try to definitely get a grasp on that and turn that around. I'm trying to think of other surprises. No, not really other surprises. I was
I mean,
pretty
or
much
because there's either one or two things that I notice. It's like people go, "Oh my God, I never saw that coming," or they tend to say, "I kind of thought that was the number, and now I know I was correct, and but I've never looked at it before."
well, that's more, yeah, like I had ideas in my head that I thought were right. And then once you actually put pen to paper, build out the spreadsheet, you're like, okay, yeah, I had a feeling that was a little bit low, or I had a feeling I was off there. And after crunching the numbers, kind of,
Confirmed.
yeah, confirm my
Right.
suspicions basically. So,
Right. And then
when-
and then it's not enough though to confirm your suspicion. The trick is you gotta have to, well, what do we do about that now?
yeah, yeah, the good thing here was all my techs, you know, bought in right away. Well, I have two full-time service techs, and they bought in right away, and they're, you know, they're paid percentage of repairs, so their price increase to them is great. And so
Right.
far, no kickback or anything. So all it looked like to them was getting a raise.
What about the
Uh,
customers? What do the customers think? Or did they say
I've
anything at
had,
all?
I would say, zero pushback at all.
We haven't said a thing.
No, definitely not. Like a service repair, I don't think I've had one price complaint or anything.
I hear this. I hear this every day. It's
Which
it's
I
the
think in the
funniest thing.
back of my head,
Right.
it's like, oh, if we raise prices, people are going to start saying no. Absolutely not. I don't think I've seen, to my knowledge, maybe we've had a couple no's, but I've never gotten like, wow, your price is outrageous, or that's just too much. We can't afford that. I don't think we've had a single complaint.
You know what's weird is I think there's a mental space that owners get into where we think, because we're so close to our business, right? That we think subconsciously, without even really realizing it, that everybody else thinks this about our company. But if you knew how little people actually thought of your company, like they don't even think about it at all. Like they don't even notice you.
Yeah.
And so that, oh, if I raise my prices, the customers are gonna go away. The customers didn't know what the old price was. They weren't paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, and I tell my techs that too. I say, like, if you feel like you've done, you know, they don't know how much you built at the last call. They don't know that you've done 3 fan motors already today, or you know, something we do a lot in Arizona. But it's like, just move on. You're there one customer at a time, one invoice at a time, you know, one thing at a time. So
Yeah, you don't. I mean, if we just raised somebody's hourly rate on their flat rate, and we raised it, like in some cases, I talk to people, we need to like triple it, like overnight. I mean, like literally, they're like at $75 an hour. It's like, dude, you need to be like 200 plus, or you're not going to be doing. You're not, because we work this guy's numbers. You're not making money at 75. You cannot stay there. And if they changed it overnight, and they go to a new customer tomorrow, that customer doesn't know what it was yesterday.
no,
And
definitely
we
not.
have this perception in our head that, oh, it's going to be terrible. It's like, it's not though. It's all a belief system. So when I'm working with it, there's usually two ways I have to attack it to get it to be successful, right? I have to get the owner, like people like you, to make the change and do it. But then I also have to get you to believe that the change is going to work, that it's true. Otherwise, you walk in there showing them a new price or a new service process or something, and you kind of cringe, like, oh, they're going to hate this. Ooh, and it doesn't work. Instead of like, no,
Well,
this is just the way we do it, right? It's.
yeah, and I've been lucky. Like I really got out of a truck. Like for the most part, I've been out of a truck like since basically October. I kind of made a conscious decision because we hired another tech at the end of summer. I said, you know what, if I'm out in the truck, I'm taking from those guys. But at
Yep.
the same time, like speaking of pricing, I don't have to be there with someone that may have known me for 5, 10 years. I don't have to sit there and tell them pricing. You know, my techs are out there they cost more money. Whereas people, people feel like the owners do it for a hobby. And that's, it's so true. I
Actually,
mean,
sometimes the owner thinks the owner's doing it for a hobby.
yeah, yeah. And so now I'm more like, well, I'm not going on a service call because this person's going to expect me to hook them up or do them a favor. It's a business I'm running. I like fixing air conditioning because it makes money, not because it's fun. It's not my choice of hobby.
Right. Well, and I'm the same as you as far as that goes. I mean, I know how to fix air conditioners, and if my own breaks in my own house, of course I'll go fix it. But I don't want to run around 10 hours a day doing that. And I think there's a difference between being a tradesman who's just enamored with the trade and then being a businessman. And at some point, you have to decide which one you are. It's really hard to be both.
Yeah, and it's a tough transition though. I'll say that.
And that doesn't mean you leave your trade skills behind and that you don't understand that and that. But if you want to have a business that can operate without you having to do everything all the time, then you have to be a business guy, not a tradesman.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm working on. So
Right.
I've been working on that for about 8 months, and it's going
Right.
great actually.
Okay. So the first thing that worked was pricing. And have you had a measurable result from that?
I couldn't tell you our profit percentage for the year yet, but like I said, our revenue is way up without added expenses, right?
Okay.
So I think pricing changes that right off the bat.
Well, yeah,
we
right.
didn't, I mean, so that's what's measurable is, yeah, my numbers January through April were, we were probably there last June, maybe is where we're at now.
Okay.
And so revenue way up without much more spend or any spend at all.
Right. Right.
Just simply pricing.
Well, it's an interesting conversation too, because like lots of my videos talk about the accounting equation, and there's 5 parts, right? And there's revenue and direct cost, and then margin, and then overhead, and then net profit, right?
Yeah.
Out of those 5, 2 of them are kind of key. One of them cannot be changed. I mean, like you can't directly influence this month's overhead. It's going to be what it is. You've already signed up for this many truck lease payments and this much office space, and pretty much that number is not going to change. It's not going to go up by 200% or something. It's not. It might go up
No.
or
Yeah.
down a bit, right? It's a pretty
So
fixed
as our
number.
revenue's gone up, our overhead is not
Right.
increased at all.
Right. So it's a pretty fixed number. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so out of those 5 things, the other one, the only one that you actually directly influence almost instantly is revenue.
Yeah.
Because that's the one, well, if I just charge more, the revenue number changes, or if I just sell more stuff because we get better at, getting people who should say yes to actually say yes, instead of telling me they're going to get 3 bids and call me back in a week. And if we get better at that, we can directly influence our revenue number right away. Direct cost, I can't really influence. I mean, manufacturer, whoever you're using is going to charge you what they charge for a condenser. I mean, I can't suddenly find it for half price, probably.
No. So
I mean,
the only thing that really increases with that is just the tech's field labor.
right.
But frankly,
But that goes up because you made more revenue.
Correct. So,
Right.
but techs in Arizona being busy January through March, that's huge. That's usually layoff and hire new guys season for a lot of companies around here. My techs were getting, summertime checks in January, February, and March.
Right.
So that's
Right.
huge. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's
we just did. I mean, the whole long and short of this conversation is kind of interesting because it plays into what you're saying. I just did a free seminar just the other day. And it was basically how to use that overhead number, which doesn't move, to figure out how to make your revenue number drive, which will drive your business. Because the other 3 numbers move when those 2 are affected, right? So, I mean, if I raise my revenue number up and I just pay my direct costs and leave it the same, I make more margin and eventually I make more net. And that, so the trick is, how do you drive your revenue to get with proper price books? And of course, if you're going to hire a sales guy, that's not you. You have to have all this stuff in place, right? And the whole trick of it is, well, we're talking about, how do I decide what my prices are? Well, grab your overhead number, which is a fixed number. And this is how you figure it out. This is what we talked about the other day. And I had, a bunch of people on there, and they all love the idea of how we do this. And actually it's like pulling the leather off your eyes, like, oh, there it is. I can see it now,
Yep.
So you had a measurable result. I mean, you haven't measured it exactly, but your revenue's up. And
Revenue's up, overhead's the same. So I mean, we know how that formula goes. So
right.
profits up. I just can't tell you how much
Yeah,
percentage.
you haven't looked at it yet. Yeah.
Right, right. But that's where we're at and trending real well. We still have hardly any demand calls here. We're starting to get to them,
Right.
but to have those 3 months be as good and profitable as they were,
Right.
like, I just know we're primed for a huge summer, and
Well, I
that's
mean,
what.
yeah, and clearly, as we're talking, it's May 3rd, 2021. So it's the beginning of summer for for the whole country. And of course,
Yeah,
in Arizona, you guys have a summer that is like, holy crap. I don't, some
yeah.
places.
But we're buckling in for the next 5 months,
Yeah, I
so
mean, there's folks up in like Montana or Washington State or whatever. They're like, summer. What do you mean summer? They don't have what you have, you know. Um, so interesting stuff. But so what? So you've done the pricing program, and I know you've done some training stuff on with your guys. How'd that go?
great. Yeah. So we've done now where we're doing call debriefing. We went from stacking their schedule in the morning to doing one call at a time, just so their focus is right there. Um, Biggest thing, well, aside from pricing, the biggest thing is we've also hired a customer service rep. She's working part-time right now. So her able to work the schedule rather than me the whole time. In fact, she schedules sales calls for me. Customers get that impression that um, maybe not that we're bigger than we are, but that we're just that we're I like the feeling that we're a little bit bigger. They know that we provide emergency service. Someone's always answering the phone within a couple rings. So that's been huge. And then what we're implementing right now is our happy follow-up calls after each service
Yep.
call. So that's kind of being put in place this week.
Well,
And then yeah,
perception is reality out there. If people perceive you as more valuable for all these reasons, then suddenly the price justification that because we back into it, right? We've done
yeah,
the math. This needs to be the price, and then people say, well, I can't. No one will buy at that price. I know because you've left your value back here. At some point, you got to become more valuable than your price, and people will pay it easily, right? So
yeah.
all the things we're talking about are the things that add value for a customer. Oh, they answer the call in a couple of rings. We know you're coming today. Someone's Johnny on the spot with telling me when my parts are ordered. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't fall through the cracks. There's just too many balls for an owner to juggle as you grow past
Yeah.
one or two people.
So no, I'm no longer like the next day thinking, oh shoot, when I was up in that attic taking a service call or answering a phone call with no notepad or anything, and remembering it the next day, like, oh shoot. So that's all cleaned up. No more loose ends, like a
Right.
tech leaving a call and needing parts. All that stuff's tied up. Customers love it. One of my texts this morning was just he was talking about a repair he did on Friday that a fairly new unit, a few years old. So the previous company had told him is unrepairable, but it was one where we had to special order parts, but we got them same day, just took care of it. And there's no loose ends, right? The customer knows they're taken care of.
Right.
They know what time we'll be back, that we will have the parts, price is set, flat rate pricing, no hourly, no customers are never guessing, what the bill is going to be. I think that's huge as well. We've always done that, but now it's just more cut and dry the way we present, um, perform the repair or return to perform the repair. No surprises. Customer pays what was presented.
Right.
It's a win-win.
Well, I mean, again, this is always the process that we're working with, right? Here's how you get here's how you do a pricing change. Here's how you make it all mathematically work out. The next thing we need to do is train the company, starting with the owner and then trickling down into the company. How do you show the value so that people just easily go, oh, that makes total sense. Yeah, go ahead, do that. Instead of
Yeah.
like, it's how much? I don't want to talk to my husband. I need to call and get 3 other companies. I need another opinion. You don't want that. If you're doing a great job, which I think everyone's trying to do a great job, I'm never going to bag on a company saying they're trying to be ripping people off. They're not. No one, I've never talked to somebody who said, here's my plan. I'm going to go rip people off. I've never met that guy.
No.
what I've
Yeah,
always
I
met
don't
is
believe in that either.
yeah, I've never met the guy who says he wants to do that, right? I always meet guys who are like, we're trying to be great at what we do. It's like, okay, but how do we prove that to a customer so that from the outside looking in, they can see it? So, I mean, there's no like technician Olympics, oh, I'm a better technician than you. I'm worth more money, It's like,
No.
well, us technicians might be able to have some kind of contest. This guy's really smart. He could figure out superheat faster than the other guy or whatever. But customers don't see any of that. For them,
No.
value is like answering the phone and showing up on time and parts are ordered and hey, the guy showed up and my unit got fixed really quickly and it's all working now. I'm cool. That's what they see.
One new thing too that it's just kind of like a phrase that I've come up with, or not even really a phrase, but um we charge for results. So like when we're quoting someone a repair, I'm
Yep.
not quoting for a part, and I'm not quoting for some super tech to come to their house. It's like right now they have an inoperable air conditioner. This is what it needs, and the result will be your air conditioner is back to cooling. So when my techs have like a callback, I say,
Right.
remember, our customers paid for results. So if you're
Right.
back on a callback, it's because your result wasn't what they wanted, or something else broke.
Right. It's not
So
for their time. It's not for how you
yeah,
tried real hard. It's none of that
yeah, I
matters.
don't care if it took you 30 minutes or an hour. We quote the repair. It includes the price and your time. We are only charging for results. So if you misdiagnose or if you have to go back, that's on that technician.
Are you
To go
saying that to
back and make it
customers?
right. I haven't yet. My text might be. I
Well,
definitely say
I,
it to
you know,
my.
I like it. I think you should do that. I think you should tell customers, hey, you're paying us to get you a result. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it cool again. And then they're going to go, okay. And that way, and especially if you're following up with guarantees to say, hey, if you have a callback, it's no charge because you paid for a result. We're going to give it to you.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of become my motto, and it's what I've always done, and now I'm getting it to trickle down to my technicians, or my receptionists that answer in the phone, or my
Right.
installers. Because it's so anyway, that's what's new, and that's to my customers, or to get my technicians to more buy in. That's one thing that I'm constantly letting them know. The customers just has a broken air conditioning. We know what it takes. We know how long. We know what it costs.
Yep.
They know that they're paying for it to be fixed, and that's all.
Right. Or whatever the other options are.
Right. Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at some point you're like, well, we've talked about this a lot. We don't necessarily need to tell a customer your air conditioner can't be fixed and it needs a new one. The easiest thing to do is let them come to that conclusion and tell me or tell you, hey, I think I need a new air conditioner. And we just, I
Yeah.
agree with you. So
Yep.
it's a lot easier that way. Again, we're back around to how do we sell air conditioners? One way is beat them over the head and try to figure out how to talk them into it or back them into a corner or whatever and give them the bad news. And I'm just really rather like, look, if we lay out all your options every single time and you come to the own natural conclusion that I don't want to spend that much to fix an old unit because you're right, it's probably broken. They just go, I mean, how much is a new one? Like, oh, we're having that conversation now.
Yep. Yeah, and then
So do
there's
you have
other.
selling techs? Are you the only salesperson or do your techs sell units?
My techs, I really tee them up for certain ones of their calls to sell, but I'm the official. If it's the sit down at the table, do the presentation, that's me.
Okay.
My techs are allowed to sell, but they give me certain information. I give them certain information back before they spit out a price or anything like that. So it's very calculated on
Okay.
how that works.
So they're not provided with your replacement sales price book and just complete the call right there by themselves.
Correct. They have access to it digitally. And yeah, so it's a little bit of a different process. And the goal is for them to turn it over to me
Okay.
to come out. So
I mean, and that's valid, because I've seen success either way. We teach it every single way there is. It's like, if some companies want to go through all the training process it takes to take a technician and say, can you properly convert from repair call to lead to running a complete sales process properly? then great. And some of the most successful companies as they grow kind of need to do something like that. Either that, or they need to learn how to go from repair call to lead and then find a process in the company to flip it quickly so that a salesperson who's trained can get out there and complete getting the customer what they need. And then the tech can run to another call then. But
Yeah, and so when we're on pace, like, or the way things are going as a salesman or a selling technician would be, potentially our next hire, where someone with hands-on, technical skills, technical ability, but with a sales background, or especially
well, actually, you can also train them. Just take the guys you've got and train them. Just give them training every day for a couple months and they get good at it.
yeah,
10,
and then
15
hire
minutes a day,
another.
10, 15 minutes a day for 30, 40, 50 days. And they're going to be very good at the conversation. And it's not, again, like turn them into a used car salesman. It's just about how do the nuances of conversation when like this needs to happen. If a customer says, I need to buy a new air conditioner, then what do we need to have happen to have them say a little while later, yep, that's the one I want. Can you put it in tomorrow? Right.
Yeah.
And there's just a few steps that they need to know what the steps are so they can go through them on purpose. It's sort of like going through little gates, right? Like, in a fence, there's like a gate and there's another gate over there, another gate over there. Well, just let the customers lead them so they walk through the gates and then they end up where they need to be.
Yeah.
So that's sort of you can again hire a guy with a sales background. And actually sometimes the background is not the important part. It's the idea that they don't mind being having a conversation with customers about buying a unit. There are certain service techs I never want to have that conversation, and they're good techs, but they're just not going to be that guy.
Yeah. They at least have to learn how to flip at that point. But
right. So what's next?
What's next for me? So right now our customer service rep is only part-time. So either move her to full-time or acquire another one. Equipment price increases coming June 1st again. So pretty much
Redo
back
the
to the
books.
drawing board on our, not to the drawing board, but of course our equipment cost is going up. So we pretty much scrap our current book that I've had only for a month or so. Scrapping
Well,
it.
here's the good news. Are you using the spreadsheet that I gave you to do that?
Yeah. So I know I can just plug in the new ones.
Yeah,
So
you don't have to redo the whole thing. You just plug in the new equipment prices and it says, oh, kaboom, here's your new numbers.
Right? Yeah, and then back to the printer, back to uploading it to our software. But
but it doesn't take a week anymore. It takes a couple hours.
Yeah. No, so nothing crazy. It's more, we've been told up 2% for our increase. So complete the new price book once again, or update it. Make it through the summer being profitable and not dropping the ball. That's
but where's your projection this year versus last year revenue wise? I mean, where are you shooting at?
We're shooting at, so last year we were close to 900,000 in revenue. Right now, through the winter months, we're on pace for 1.2 million. Summer in Arizona will almost, it's the manpower at this point, but sometimes a winter month versus a summer month is double,
right?
Easily. If you do 80,000 in a month in the winter, June, July, August should be double that, just because of the demand, the hours, the weekends.
Right.
So our goal is 1.5 million this year.
So from 900 to 1.5. That's a pretty good goal. You think you're going to hit it?
I think we'll get real close.
I think you're going to.
My original goal was 1.2, and we're on pace for that. Like I said, through the winter. So
yeah.
So we can for sure. So
you got to set it just out of reach, and then break it into little chunks, right? And this is goal setting 101, right? Yeah.
I mean, you and I talked about a monthly goal last week, so I know what I've got to do, and it's all reachable.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, sometimes it's like, oh, if I just sell one extra unit every week or two, I do this bigger number. Okay.
That's pretty much where we're at. Is right. Like,
it's not that hard to sell like one extra one every 10 days or something, right?
Yeah. Right. And that's pretty much where we're at from winter to summer, and definitely last year to this year, price increase.
So what's that going to mean? Just to back into, if you do 1.5 million, let's just talk about the basic number here. See if you think I'm right about where you should be. Okay. So out of that 1.5 million, you've already paid yourself a salary somewhere in there, in the overhead or someplace. You've already made money as a person.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the company itself should have money left over because that's called net profit. By the way, folks, net profit is not because the owner got money. The net profit is because the company had money and the owner still got paid. Let's just be clear, right?
Right.
So what does that look like for you? What do you think the number is going to be? Meaning,
Um,
hey, at the end of the year, I got paid and my bank account now has this much sitting in it. Got to pay taxes now, but that's cool. I got money.
you better be at least 10%. So,
At
man, what
least
were we at
10%.
last year? Yeah, I'm saying minimum 10%. So if we had 150,000 at the end of the year, that's a goal of mine. I have reinvested a lot in the business. We are in a growing stage. So
Right.
there's
Have you ever had a number like that where it's just sitting there?
no, before all the bills are paid, yeah. No, but no, like coming December, Christmas Eve, having that much sitting in the bank. I'm always reflecting the end of December. Like, what do we do this year? What could we have done better? It's just more like this year I'm taking the actions to do it, and I have real goals and real
Right.
numbers. And like you said, I know how many systems we should install, how profitable a service call should be.
Right. And,
So
and to be clear, I don't think you necessarily have to have, 150 or $250,000 sitting in your bank account because there's reasons why it wouldn't be sitting there. Like, for example, if a company had $100,000 in debt and you've wiped out the debt, companies out there, it's like, well, it's the same thing. You've just given the money over. You don't have debt anymore. So it's like it's sitting there, but it's not sitting there. Or you said, I'm time to expand. I'm going to buy trucks and I just go write checks for them or something,
right. And last year, our profit was low percentage wise because we had bought 3 new vehicles, new
Well, no, your
equipment,
profit's still high.
trailers.
You just reinvested it. There's a difference. Right.
Correct. So anyway, but yeah, this year, a lot of those expenses are behind us. So there should be a bunch of money at the end of the year. If we keep going the way we're going.
Right. Okay, cool. So, any other comments you want to make about where you're at, what it's like to work with a coach, what it's like to work with me specifically, anything like that?
To me, it's more like accountability. Each time I talk to you, I'm kind of like, let you know what I've done. Like, oh, hey, I haven't gotten to that yet, but I did do this and this. I feel, really, I feel just more accountable. I've been doing things my way for a long time, and knowing that they're not the best and they don't necessarily work. As far as profit, I think it's all about profitability. So like accountability leads to that. And I have felt like you're a good accountability partner. When I've kind of come up with some stupid idea, you've let me know. And then I've later thought about it and said like, yeah, that's kind of dumb. I don't know why I would have done. Maybe you didn't know that, but I've had some things that I've said and you've kind of corrected me. And then later I thought, yeah, that was kind of a dumb idea. I don't know why I would do that.
We all run. Hey, believe me, I've been doing this a long time. And when I was growing my company in the initial stages, I ran off down some rabbit holes that are like, what the heck was I doing that for? One that comes to mind is I had a client here in Denver who was a rich dude. He owned a really big kind of a large, expensive house in a very affluent area. And it turns out, and he was a great customer and we serviced his house and stuff like that. And then he owned a bunch of hotels and stuff all over the state, like up in Steamboat. So that's like a 4 or 5 hour drive from Denver. And
Yeah.
at one point, he's like, hey, we're renovating the Holiday Inn in Steamboat. Do you want to do the HVAC? And I was like, oh, that sounds great. What a bad mistake that was. That was terrible.
Shoot. Another thing,
I was away and it was like every time the weather, because it's a ski resort, right? So when the weather, if it snows, the roof guys can't do what they're doing. You can't set roof curbs. And you're like, now I've lost a week and I'm not doing what I should be doing back in Denver. Like my company, it was bad mistake, running off into directions I should not have been in that market. I should have told them thanks, but no thanks.
I'm glad you've brought that up. I've definitely narrowed our focus. We're trying to be, I used to just say yes to everything. And that kept me in a truck doing busy work. Whereas now,
right.
I've had people ask me to do, certain things and bid on this and bid on that. And I've totally narrowed my focus and I've been able to find other companies that do those things. Just for example, like commercial TIs, that's the least profitable thing I've ever done. I've probably lost so much money doing those. I have a family member that's a general contractor, and I used to say yes to everything, and I'd do him for the price he wanted, and
right.
I would not do it for the price that I should have done it for. I'd do it too cheap every time. And this year, it's a brother-in-law of mine, and I've had to tell him, you've got to find somebody else. And he's gone and found some cheap one-man show,
Right.
and now my guys, I've never done as many residential replacements at good margins as I have this year,
Yep.
by
Once
far
you
and
start
away.
focusing on what you want to do and the market you want to serve, and just get good at it, right?
Yeah, and
I-
well, that's what I'm saying is like my guys, we don't have scissor lifts. We can't go. We don't want to go run and wrap pipe. I would say 5 out of 6 of my employees have never wrapped a piece of pipe. So if I go take that job, that means I have to be there teaching my techs to wrap pipe.
Right.
That's the
Exactly.
last thing on earth that I would want to do.
Well, it's
And
so funny. And you know what helps a lot is once you formalize what you do and don't do, it streamlines a lot of things. So an example would be, people used to call my office, and my office manager would answer the phone and they'd say, "Hey, we got these blueprints for the such and such or whatever." She's like, "Yeah, we don't do that. We don't want to look at your blueprints. Don't even send them.
Exactly.
We just know that
And
we just know we're not in that market. She knew we're not in that business,
And sometimes I say yes, and then I send it to somebody else and
Yeah,
say,
right.
"In touch with
Yeah.
this." There's companies that do it, and they're great. They know.
No,
and
if that's
more-
if that's your deal, that's what you want to do, great. But when you say this is what we do, this is not what we do, and I kind of equate it to like if you run a restaurant, like you run a steak place, and someone says, "Can you make pasta?" It's like, well, I know how. It's not that hard to boil water and make pasta, but that's not what we do here. It's a steak
Yeah.
restaurant. If you want an Italian pasta place, there's another place down the street that's great at it, and it's all they do.
Yep.
Unless you go to
Yeah.
Cheesecake Factory, then they make like everything. The menu's like a phone book, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and I'm not trying to be Cheesecake Factory.
No, exactly. Yeah. I
They
mean,
got
and
a
the
big
funny thing
kitchen
is,
over there.
even those guys, when you say, what are they really great at? They're mediocre at all of it.
Yeah, they couldn't tell you.
Right. Yeah.
That's, I mean, I don't know if that's part of your program, but that's been huge.
No,
as
it definitely, well, if you remember the very first thing we talk about in the very first
well.
day
Yeah.
is heaven,
Design my
hell, all the
ideal
stuff like that.
customers.
Yep. What's your ideal customer? What's your mindset? We do all that. That is the first thing we
Yes.
start with.
Oh, and you should have seen, now that I'm remembering the notes I took. I was writing for people by first and last name of who I will not look at your blueprints. I will not come to your house anymore.
Right.
But that's seriously saved
Yeah.
me so much hassle. Definitely taking those jobs. Like, what's the worst? I think kind of like you with that hotel.
Yep.
Like if I were to take this TI doing a tropical smoothie cafe or whatever it is that people that know me are trying to get me to do, I would literally be back in a truck taking one of my installers from a replacement job,
That would be making a lot of money.
making a lot of money to go lose money doing a TI. And I did that for years. And anyway, so
Not anymore.
that's been huge. Yeah, I forgot. That's like one of your first things is find your ideal customers and your customers that you won't
And
work
your
with
nightmare
anymore.
customers. Yep.
And I've been able to hand pick and tell them no, or say, I know just the person that will do this for you. I'll even forward them the blueprints for you.
Well, here's the thing that's weird, right? When you do marketing is attracting the people you want and on purpose repelling the ones you don't. On purpose.
Yeah,
Well,
hard to think of it like that, but that's
Good marketing is never, everybody can come one, come all, we'll do it for everybody. That's never good marketing. I mean, think about it. Like used car companies as an example, there are car companies out there say, hey, we make cars for the everyday common man. You want an inexpensive car? Come and see us. We're Hyundai. We're great at it. And then there's like
Yep.
Ferrari, Lamborghini. Look, if you can't afford an expensive car, just don't even come to the showroom. We ain't got one. We attract the customers who want an expensive car, and we just tell everybody else, sorry, you can't afford it. And they're proud about it. They're happy with it,
Yep.
and just be okay with it. Just pick which one you are and do that. Right.
Yeah.
And quit lying to people about, oh, we can figure that out. No, you can't. You're not good at it.
Yeah, the other one, is like walk-in coolers. Like people will call me. I consider myself just a residential and light commercial service and replacements. That's what I've targeted 100%.
Yep.
So when these light commercial customers ask us if they can work on their walk-in, I've worked on walk-ins before back when I was in a truck. My
Right.
techs don't know how. So now my answer is no, very
Right.
quickly.
Right. Refrigeration cycle's the same. The temperature's different. Okay. So,
And we don't have those jugs of refrigerant on our trucks, and we
right.
don't.
And the little parts and the little, the relay and the temperature control and the rest, you don't have it in stock. So,
And no relationship with these refrigeration parts dealers. Yeah, it's
yeah,
just
right.
whole different world, and that's something when I'm in the truck I was dabbling with, and no more.
Yeah, exactly. So a really, really big deal. So that's where you're at next. Any other closing comments? I mean, I know that our initial first call was really fun. I actually like doing those calls. I love doing it. That's why I do them for free. You know,
Fun for you.
it's
No,
like,
I'm just funner for you than me, because I'm sitting here telling you what I'm bad at and what I need
well,
help with, but not wanting to fully admit it. So
you know what? That brings up a good point. That can be a difficult call because it's a thing where there's a bit of a challenge where it says, "Hey, tell me what's not working. Why are we on the phone? Because if everything's awesome, what are we doing here?" Right?
yeah, I mean, yeah. So and
But
you
I mean, hopefully, I don't make it like put you like make you feel bad. I mean,
no, definitely easy. It's just more like I think you're asking me what was wrong with my business, and I didn't really know.
right?
But after like 2 minutes, you could point out what I could work on. And from watching all your videos, I did kind of know like I need to
Right.
work on this. This isn't working out.
Well, hopefully, it holds up a mirror in a way that makes you say, "I can't ignore this now. I've got this big zit on my nose." I mean, like I've just got this thing on I can't ignore it. I can pretend it's not there, but
Yeah, and I think you did a good job of, getting you not telling me what's wrong with my business, but kind of helping me see and helping me. It's more like a realization, I guess.
right. Right.
Just like
I mean,
because I,
hopefully that's the goal of it. So I'm glad it worked out. So,
yeah, because probably 2, 3 years ago, I thought my business was the best. I thought I was doing great, and then after like 5 years of kind of being the same, I was like, yeah, something's not right. And there's a lot of things out of place.
right.
So,
Well, I mean, I define, there's weirds because I'm in business. It's like, you're a guy in a truck. In my opinion, it's not a business yet. You're self-employed, but it's not the same thing until your business can kind of service customers and stuff. And it's not just one person that's doing all of it. It's not really a business yet. It's,
yeah, I
you know,
totally agree. And so
yeah,
yeah, and I've been a big advocate of that. Like, I have a lot of friends in HVAC, and I've tried to be like, obviously, recently since getting out of a truck, I'm trying to tell them how great it is. And
right.
I'm still putting in a lot of work, but I know I do have a little bit of like light at the end of the tunnel. Like I know what it's like to own a business. As you can see, it's Monday, 10:05 my time, and I'm able to be in the office.
Right.
It's probably 92 degrees outside or something like that. There's calls being ran, there's installs being
There's
done,
money coming in,
there's
phones getting
money coming in,
answered.
and my truck's not
Right.
on the road. So it's good.
I'll tell you for me, the time I realized that I actually had a real business was two times. And they were within about 2 or 3 years of each other. One was I had a chance to go with my wife. I was married at the time, and we got a chance to go to Tahiti, well, Moorea, but Tahiti. And when you're that many time zones away from what's going on, no one can call you for like 10 days and say, "Hey, how much is one of these?" Or "What do we do about this part?" or whatever. I got back and I'm like, "Hey, look at that. All the customers got serviced, and somehow we installed some stuff I didn't even know we sold. And it was actually great." So that was important to be able to do that. And then catastrophically, which actually gives me the passion. I don't know if you ever heard this story about how I ended up doing the coaching thing and why
I
I think it's
do.
such a big deal. When my oldest daughter was born, she's 19 now, but she spent 16 weeks in the NICU. And when you go to the hospital every day for half the day, and your business still has to operate, I could have came back to bankruptcy within a couple of weeks. I think most companies couldn't survive more than a couple of weeks of that.
Yeah.
They would have failed. And
Yeah,
I had a
especially when
great
the owner's in
staff.
a truck, it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I had a great staff. They were handling it. I remember my office manager coming down on Fridays because at that time we didn't have direct deposit. I had to sign the paychecks. So, because it was 20 years ago,
Oh,
19 years
yeah.
ago. So she would
Yep.
come down on Fridays and she would hand me a stack of paychecks and I just sign them. I didn't even say, I don't know how many hours did this guy work or that guy work. I don't know. There's a process for it. I know it's right. I just signed the paychecks and handed them back to her and went back to hospital stuff because and my daughter's fine now. She just tested last week for a black belt in mixed martial arts, her
Sweet.
second one. She didn't quite make it. She missed one of the things, and so she's going to redo it. But she's fine now. But yeah, she was literally in that year, 2002. She was the sickest baby in Denver. So,
Whoa.
yeah, the sickest baby that was in the NICU that made it. Because a bunch of them, when you're in there long enough, you see that they don't make it. There's probably, I don't know what the number is, but it's enough. You're going, oh, the bed next to us, that baby didn't survive. So, you see that happening every day.
Yeah, you had told me that story, and it is an eye opener.
Right.
I mean,
That's when you realize it was nice to know when you have a crisis like that. And it could be anything. It could be a kid that's sick, a parent that you need to take care of. You just hurt yourself. I mean, we've got COVID. You could get COVID or something for a couple of weeks. You don't want to lose your life, your livelihood. At this point, you're saying, hey, look, I know the business is fine. It's going to pay my mortgage and everything's fine. Maybe we're not in growth mode right now, but we're not going to die. And it's a really important thing to build a company that can do that. Such a big passion of mine is like, guys, if you're running around with yourself and a helper or whatever, as quickly as possible, get out of that. It's okay to make money, but it's better to have it be able to make your family successful and survive and be stable with other processes instead of just what you got in your own head and the hands you've got to do the work.
Well, I know we're probably going long, but I know another thing you pointed out was like, my time is worth more than 12, 14 bucks an hour. Like,
right.
So sometimes when I'm doing something, I'm having to say, you know what? Like, I mean, not to say like, well, Ted told me, but it's like, yeah, I could be definitely doing something else, or I could be doing whatever I want. And this could be taken over by one of my employees. That's likely,
Right.
Well, I mean, I'm paid to do stuff like this.
I got that lesson like 20 plus years ago from a rich dude. Okay. Like a guy with like a true multimillionaire that was one of my clients. And we were talking about some stuff and somehow it came up about, doing stuff around the house. I guess maybe I was there when they were cutting his lawn or something like that. He says, oh no, I never cut my lawn. He said, why would I cut my lawn? I can just pay these guys $40. He goes, I make $500 an hour. He was an attorney. He's at the time, $500 an hour was like, he goes, I can make $500 an hour going back to my office and working. And if I'm not going to do that, I go home and do something I want to do,
Yeah. Sometimes
take my kids on vacation, take them to the amusement park, do something fun, or go to a baseball game or something, whatever your thing is. But why would I cut my lawn to save $40?
Yeah. So and I'm putting mine on a little mini test. So next week's my wife and I's 10-year anniversary. And so we're going to Cancun for good chunk of the week, and I'm putting my structure to the test. So
well, you'll find out.
Prep work coming this week.
Well, at least you're not 6 time zones away like when I went to Tahiti.
Well, exactly, yeah. And I've done it. I did a vacation last year, but the results were not great. I'll just say that it felt like we didn't lose any business, but I don't know if we made any money that week.
You come back to a mess like, oh, I got to call back 19 people instead of like 2, and
Yeah, so we're putting a little bit of what I've learned to the test, and we're going to see how it goes next week. I think it should be good. Definitely a lot better than last year.
That's cool. All right. So if anybody wants to hook up one of those phone calls, it's easy to do. You just go to tedgravlin.com/booking, set up for the call. It gives you access to my calendar. You can set up, we can have that conversation about where you're at, where you're trying to go, what's going on, whether or not I can help you or not. And like Mark, suddenly kaboom, wow, all this new stuff to do that's easy to do. I mean, tell me if you think this is right, Mark. You've heard you want to work on your business, not in your business. And most people don't have a list of what that is. Right.
Oh, shoot.
So here's a list, Mark. Do this, just do this next. Right.
And you can do it how you want and when you want. It is a job, but it's not at least you're not in an attic doing it.
Right. But the idea is that someplace you got to say, well, I could work on my business, but the very next question is like, what am I supposed to be doing to do that? So hopefully what we do is we say step by step, well, do this part first, then do this next, then do this next. And don't skip any steps.
No, that's a good way to put it. Showing you how to work on your business, not in it.
Yeah. And here's the list of tasks. Just do this one. Ignore all the other ones. Just do this until it's done. And then when you're done, then we'll give you another one. Right.
Yep.
So hey, thanks for hanging out and doing a call with us today. And for everybody else out there, we'll talk soon.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Ted.